Hi, I'm Russ with DevotedGolfer.tv. I'm here with Bill Halawadi. Did I get it right that
You
time?
did. You got it perfect, Russ. Thank you.
Yeah, good, good. It's 2016. We're at the PGA Merchandise Show. I've been a Miura dealer now for 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Long relationship that goes back a long time.
yeah. And I've never actually had you in front of the camera. I've had some others from the company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So first for everything, and hopefully I,
Yeah,
live up to
yeah.
expectations, Russ.
Yeah. And so Bill is, if there is a North American expert on the Miura product line, this is the guy.
I think this is the guy. This is the
Yeah.
guy. My relationship with the Miura family goes back almost 30 years, but been involved with the Miura name in North America for 12, 13 years now. So
Yeah.
I'm the one to speak to a lot of what is arguably the best forged golf club in the world.
And so give me a little background on the Miura brand.
I love talking about this because one thing that is really dear to us is that there is a Mr. Miura, right? You look at other companies within the marketplace, they've got names and they do very well, but we have a Mr. Miura who puts his name, his surname on it, on his clubs. There is a Miura factory located in Himeji, Japan, and Mr. Miura has been in the golf industry since 1957, got started at 1957. Had his own company started about 36 years ago now, and we've been distributing his good products around the world outside of Japan since 2002.
So what's his background? How did he get started in forging golf clubs?
Himeji is actually in the steel region of Japan. It is where samurai swords have come from. So there was, foundries within that and forges within the Himeji area.
And
Developed
growing up in that area where you have a lot of craftsmen involved, and
that's one thing Mr. Miura was very, proud of, the fact that his area and his company was an employer of, or is an employer of, many within that region, and the strength of all Japanese forged clubs is good for everyone. So, he welcomed other businesses and companies in his area to be as strong as possible, and he was hurt when many of them, they had moved to other Asian countries, were lost there, and many lost their jobs. But he's maintained and stayed there and continues to, produce the best forged golf clubs.
what caused him to start his own foundry?
Well, working for another company, he had a belief that he could do better in producing a tighter grain structure within the head. So he felt that the manufacturing process, in his mind, and he always talks about this is his way of doing things. He doesn't judge how others do it, but in his way of doing things, that the process was fundamentally flawed because the hosel had to be protected during the forging process. So the strike and the heating of the head to manipulate the grain structure had to take into account that the way clubs were being forged with the hosel attached had to be protected, and he felt he just wasn't able to manipulate that grain structure the way that he wanted to. A tighter grain structure was going to produce, a better feel, better performance, and it just couldn't happen with that. So he determined that if he could remove the hosel from the forging process, it would allow that head to sit flat within the die, allow a specific strike, a specific amount of heat, which would then allow him to manipulate that grain structure within the head to the tightest possible. And the analogy that we've used over the years is a glass jar filled with marbles, a glass jar filled with sand, and you look at them and see that tight grain structure, the glass jar filled with sand, is what the Miura club head is.
And so that's a little tighter, sweeter feeling.
Absolutely.
It's hard to describe that.
It is.
But
But
anybody that hits it knows it.
Yeah, and we've had many describe the sound and the feel as being, literally having an epiphany after they've hit a shot.
Yeah.
Say, I've played golf for 20, 30, 40 years, and I've never felt that before.
Right.
And, they try to describe it, and often the adjectives that come out are butter or soft. But in essence, what they're describing is solid. So you know, when you hit with that glass jar filled with marbles, there's a little vibration. It travels up the shaft, and
Right.
that's what you feel. When
Yeah.
you hit with the glass jar filled with sand, you know, the energy transfers to the ball is complete. You don't feel it come up the
Yeah.
handle, and then it's
Now my
solid.
understanding is it's not all just the grain structure, it's the way that the hosel is unattached, that spin mill forging, spin mill welding process, what do we call it?
Well,
That
yeah.
that spin mill process actually produces a better bond than you would have otherwise if you just stamped that hosel.
So now we've determined that we can manipulate the grain structure and produce a tighter grain structure within the head.
Right.
Now we do have to put the hosel on. So again, Mr. Miura developed a proprietary piece of equipment that literally takes a hosel and we've heard many, describe it as a spin weld, but there's nothing added. It's literally spin forging, where the same carbon steel, which is milled and pre-drilled.
Pre-drilled. Yeah.
So every hosel is identical, weighs the same, the depth is the same, everything is identical, is spun at high speed, forming that spin forged that permits now, a complete and perfect, a near perfect club head. So now we have and can be assured of, with that spin forging, the actual meld there is not weak. In fact, it's stronger than any other part of the club. So, there was a misconception at times that you would de-loft the club or loft the club after hitting it. Not the case. It is as strong as it needs to be. And then in the assembly of the club down the line, we can be assured that every hosel is identical in terms of the depth, in terms of the alignment. So the angle is identical on every club head. So the whole process not only allowed the grain structure within the head to be perfect, but it meant that the hosel was perfect. And that was as important in putting together the perfect club head.
And that gives you a unique ability almost to fine-tune lofts and lies and have them stick where you put them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is, again, that misconception that you're feeling soft. It's not soft, it's solid. And hence, as you said, if my lie angle's 2 degrees up and your club fitter is adjusting them to your specifications, you can be assured that that's where it's going to stay.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's fantastic. It's a really unique process, and having something like that, gives everybody who works with Miura product a sense of pride, because it's so nice working with something that is the best.
Yeah, and it's truly unique, and it's made with that mindset towards quality that almost seems to be unique in Japan.
Yeah, I think synonymous with Japan is, and we've come to know that. The tolerances of our club head are literally plus or minus half a gram, and from a club fitter's point of view, how fantastic is that, knowing that every club head you put together is identical in weight to the next set and the next set and the next set after that. So there's a 14-step forging process that each club head comes through, but the tolerances are at each one of those steps are literally plus or minus half a gram. So in the raw state after the spin forging happens, you measure the weight of those heads, they're all within that tolerance. After the grooves are stamped, all within that tolerance. So it's pretty consistent throughout, and that's why there's such a pride in the quality and the finish of the product, because you can be assured of what you get.
The quality is unlike anything else I've seen.
Yeah, and that's a source of pride, but it's a source of pride for the Miura family and the workers at the factory. So Mr. Miura, like most of us, figured out early on, if you're going to do something, let's do it right. And from that standpoint, we deliver consistency to our dealers and to golfers, and that is beyond reproach.
Let's take a look at one of the designs. This
Sure.
is the 501, and the 501 has been with us now 3-4 years.
Yeah, coming up on 5 years, I think, almost. So that's a unique process of our car.
That speaks to something about Miura, is that if it's good, you don't have to obsolete it every year, right? It stays with us. And if when I look at the 501, I see the the 201, right?
Yeah, the born there a little bit
Very,
with the
very
split
similar
cavity.
with
Yeah.
the split cavity with an insert.
Yeah. And essentially, looking at Mr. Miura is obviously a student of the game and looks and in terms of his design to, deliver to golfers around the world what he believes is something that's going to help promote, better golf. The CB501, which incidentally was the club that KJ Choi used when he won the Players Championship, continues to be one of our top sellers. And the reason it's a top seller is because of the design, because of the ease of which you're able to, put it down, like what you look, and deliver the performance that golfers are looking for. So it continues to be a really good seller for us.
And so this picture here is the black boron
Yeah.
version of that.
Well, as you can see, we've seen more black club heads come to the marketplace, and when there's a demand, the Miura family looks at it, and if again, we'll never introduce anything into any model that they make just for the sake of marketing. It has to live up to their standards. They're very high standards, and
So when I say black boron, the boron is not in the head itself; it's in the finish.
Correct. It's in the finish.
Yeah.
The head itself is identical to the satin finish models that we have. But
Why boron?
well, we experimented with a number of black finishes that didn't deliver under launch technology. The feel, first of all, but the performance characteristics and statistics that are satin. There was a difference. There was a literally a little bit harder feel that didn't it just didn't feel or sound like a Miura club. So the challenge was to find a black finish that allowed the Miura club to feel like a Miura club. And this black boron finish is what the Miura family was able to come up with.
So when we talk about finish, it could be chromed. In this case,
Yeah.
it's a black boron. How's it applied? Is it painted? Is it?
Yeah, it's done outside the Miura factory. So with the relationship that the Miura family has within Himeji, much the same as the satin finish is done on a golf club, which in essence is going to deliver a club that wears, or a finish that wears very similar to what a satin finish would wear. So all golf clubs wear. In satin, though, you can't see it because
it's going to wear.
It's
Well,
going to.
just depends how long you play it.
Sure,
before you see it.
we've all seen the guy
you've seen it sooner or later.
who's worn out the sweet spot on his club because he's making like you do, Russ. On the
I saw a guy one time came in, literally had a cavity
where
in
he
his
is.
clubs. Literally a cavity. In
Yeah.
it, right.
We saw
And I said, "Where's your 7-iron?" He said, "I wore it out." Went
literally
right through it.
Literally.
Yeah.
So this
It was
will,
time for a fitting.
Yeah, there you go, and you got him. So the wear is going to be on the sole of the club, on the face of the club where you're making contact, but the black or the back of the club will always maintain its black finish, and it's been very well received. Limited production though. We don't do a lot of them, but it appeals to a certain golfer, and we're really proud of the fact that you can't distinguish between the satin and the boron in terms of feel.
In terms of feel, and I think that's a real interesting point, that the finish of a club is a component of feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not something that everybody thinks about.
No,
but,
but
it's there.
It's there, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even the framing of a golf ball. Some it doesn't matter to. Some put it down there, and that black top line just frames the ball a little better. Can deliver a little bit extra confidence. And
Yeah. Let's move on to the 1957.
So we've got a few clubs within our line.
The
that
1957. That's
pays honor or homage to Mr. Miura's start within the golf industry. We love the new forged symbol that is on our wedges and on our MB001 blade, and on this club as well. Forged, obviously, forged in Japan. But the kanji, the Japanese symbol there, speaks to forged in a number of different contexts. Forging, obviously, the club. Forging of character, and forging in terms of practice, devoting, time to your craft to get better at what you do, and all those things, within that symbol, our customers can connect to, and that sort of is really reflective of how the Miuras, view their clubs and their manufacturing.
So we've got a cavity back with center focused weight. And if I flip back a slide, I've got the same thing, cavity back with center focused weight. Tell me a little bit about center focusing weight and why this was viewed as significantly different than the 501, what you accomplished with that.
So the 1957 CB is a little bit more compact club than the 501. So it's a little bit, tighter heel to toe.
Yeah.
The purpose to deliver that mass behind the sweet spot, and obviously a feel and performance that delivers optimum spin, optimum launch angle on all the irons. So through the set, we would have the short irons would have all the way up to and fill the cavity.
So the mass has moved up a little bit
Mass
higher.
it moved up higher on the club face.
So as you have more loft and you have a strike higher in the face, you're moving the mass up to match where you actually strike the face.
Absolutely. So behind that sweet spot, you have the optimum in terms of the density.
Yeah.
So
and,
much.
And I've heard some research that says that if you don't have that mass up there and you put the mass too low, you actually lose ball speed.
And not to mention the trajectory that you're looking for as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's important. You're right.
Yeah.
And you see that, with ball speed, and then all of a sudden your yardages, are compromised a little bit.
So we move a little bit away from blade. We have a cavity.
Yep.
We get a little forgiveness, but we're still focused on where the mass is in the contact. Yeah.
Absolutely. So a lot of what the Miuras do is weight, is density, and is distribution. So, the weight of the total club, the weight that's behind the club face, the density, of that club face, the distribution of that weight. So on the long irons, there's more of the weight is down below and there's actually a gap. Short irons, that weight would extend, as we talked about, all the way up to the top line. So weight, distribution, and density impact a lot of the design of the golf clubs and the performance that comes from using that.
So
optimally.
What's coming new this year is more for the lefty.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and we have an absolute affinity for the left-handed golfers. Our corporate offices being in Vancouver, Canada, where fully 33% of new golfers are left-handed.
33%.
33% of left-handed.
The number I've always heard is lefties are 7%.
Yeah, in Japan it's between 1% and 2%.
Really?
But we thought, here's something we can,
So what is it with Canadians that makes them 33% of them lefties?
I don't think there's any doubt that the hockey influence has, and there's studies done where, you're picking up a hockey stick before you're picking up a golf club, and typically that hockey stick's on the ground. Kid will pick it up with his dominant hand, which for most is the right hand, and the right hand becomes the top hand on the hockey stick, and next thing you know, you're left-handed. So then when golf comes, I've already been playing left-handed, so now I'll be a left-handed golfer. Typically, we see golfers, the parent is giving them the golf club, maybe the one that they already have, putting it in their hands, and it's already a right-handed club because my dad played right-handed and his dad played right-handed. So we thought we could do a really good job for left-handers, but at the end of the day, we find out, regardless of how many new golfers in Canada are left-handed, there's still a real discrepancy between the amount of right-handed clubs you sell and the amount of left-handed clubs you sell.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, in forged clubs especially, we know that there's a blade model and a cavity back model that deliver the Miura feel and performance, and they've been in our line for a number of years. But again, the Miura family has always been quick to or not quick, slow to change unless they can improve on something. And the way we've improved on it is they've delivered what is ultimately called the Y grind. The Y grind.
That's here, yeah.
And our models come in both in the cavity back in the blade. Y standing for Yoshitaka, which is Mr. Miura's #1 son. Just going off course here for a little bit, the grinding line at the Miura factory, the #1 chair is still occupied by Mr. Miura. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
go in there and there's chair number 1, chair number 2, 3, etc.
Yeah.
Number 1 chair, Mr. Miura. Number 2 chair, Yoshitaka Miura.
Yeah.
And Yoshitaka is, certainly not new to the game, but he is a brilliant grinder, designer, and to be able to take what is our existing model and put what is Y grind on the Y grind groove, which is a softer leading edge.
Right. And
A little
it
bit
doesn't
of
come through well here, but you can see it to some degree.
Yeah.
You've got that roll off and leading edge. You have
Absolutely.
a roll off and a trail. You have a very, very small area of turf interaction.
Well, promoting great turf interaction with
Yeah.
the club, which allows that club face to travel through the turf, maintain its stability, create better ball on club face contact, hence more solid shots.
and this
better
is not.
feel.
I mean, this is not new stuff. The 501.
The CB57 and our MB001 both have this grind on them.
Yeah.
But to be able to introduce it to the left-handed model was something. And it's not just a case of just doing a different grind here. When you're taking weight off the bottom of the club, you have to adjust the profile of the whole club, again, to maintain that stability. The Miura club that wants to get back to squared impact.
Yeah.
To take some weight off here, make the club head lighter, and then create, something that was not up to those standards, just wasn't a possibility. So there's more to it. It looks very simplistic, and to put the Y grind on it, but there's a lot that goes into the design of that
Right.
head.
Yeah. What comes out here has to go someplace.
Oh,
right?
exactly right.
In
Right.
order to
So
maintain your balance,
the
yeah.
number of grams here, had to come from somewhere.
Yep. And let's look at this. This has been a favorite of mine for a long, long time.
Ah, we love that.
The K grind.
A non-traditional look.
Yeah.
You look at that K grind wedge and you think, you almost step back a little bit. I was introduced to it when playing with Mr. Miura in Japan probably about 8 or 9 years ago. He was experimenting with it, had a completely raw club, and hands it
Yeah,
to me and
yeah.
says,
I have one right here.
and says, take a few swings. What do you think? And I'm.
The first thing that happens is you look at it and go, what is that?
Absolutely.
Right.
So those scallops in there, the flutes tend to be a little shocking because it's not something you see in the industry. But taking it to the golf course, to the sand traps, to the bunkers, you find out that those scallops offer, or make that club head extremely stable coming through the rough, through the sand. Acting in many respects like rails that hold that club head square, and less turf resistance, and more good shots.
Yeah. Speaking to turf resistance, I mean, when you look at this, you're seeing a fairly high bounce wedge, and not everybody understands what bounce is all about. I mean, you get involved in high bounce wedges with high camber as
Sure.
well. So what you have is a small amount of area of, as we said,
Interacting with the turf, right?
interacting with the turf. And the way I explain it to people is, would you rather hit into a wave with the bow of the boat or with the flat of a surfboard, right? Which one is going to give you a cleaner path
Yeah.
through that wave? And so when we look at high bounce but also high camber, so we've got a big roll on the bottom of it, this is the bow of the boat
Yeah.
crushing into the wave.
Yeah.
And I look at some other designs with big flat bottoms, and I go, I guess we're going surfing off the turf today.
Well,
yeah.
but a really good player is going to be able to, nip the ball, hit ball before turf. It doesn't matter what you put into his hands. They're going to be able to deliver that. Certainly, there's been some thought about low bounce on hard pan surfaces,
Right,
and
yeah.
but what we're finding out, or what the Miura's found out with the K grind, is that high measured bounce didn't necessarily effectively become. Sorry, the high measured bounce was not necessarily what the effective bounce was, and so the ability of a golfer to customize his setup in order to manipulate loft and or create that buffer for what is a perfect shot versus missing it a little bit.
What if I come in a little early?
Absolutely.
Am I gonna Am I going to bounce off the ground?
And
Yeah.
that event essentially was another one of the byproducts of the flutes, being able to lay that club open, having those those
Yeah,
flutes
get
act
this-
as rails on the ground, and not allowing that club in essence to bounce into the ball, to maintain its club head path and hit a lob shot or a flop
Yeah.
shot with it.
And, and like all Miura products, if you got something that works, don't fix it.
There you go.
It's
been
been
in
around
the
with us
line
for a
and
while.
continues to get more and more popular. Comes in 3 lofts, 52, 56, and 60.
Mm-hmm.
And typically somebody dips their toe in the Miura waters with a 52 degree or a 56 degree loft, and next thing you know, our club fitters are going back and said, well, I need a 52 and a 60 to fill the set out. So we're really proud of that.
Yeah, and because of the hosel design, you can move it a little bit
Yeah,
this way, move it a little bit that
absolutely.
way. So,
To
so
fit
if you
your-
want a 57, you just take it moving a little
Absolutely,
bit.
and
Yeah.
with as we talked about with the measured bounce, you've got some latitude there too. That's not going to affect the playability of it at all.
Well, Bill, thanks for spending time with us.
That's my pleasure, and we appreciate what you do not only for Miura Golf but for club fitters everywhere and the industry as a whole. And if we can, spread the word about the
Custom
quality of
fitting.
individuals that are out there selling Miura product, then golfers are going to be able to go to those club fitters and know that the clubs they deliver are the best that money can buy, and we're really proud of that.
Great.
Thanks, Russ.
Russ at Devoted Golfer TV with Bill. Thanks for spending your time with us.